Yes, I know when you lead, the blessings follow. While we trodden on the kingdom road, we always in the sun kingdom road, the light of Zion kingdom road, redemption time has come kingdom road. Tell me, are you ready? Cross over Jordan.
Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Yahweh. O Yahweh, hear my voice, and let thy ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications. If thou, Yah, should mark iniquities, O Yahweh, who shall stand? But there is forgiveness with thee, that thou mayest be feared. I wait for Yahweh, my soul does wait, and in his word do I hope. My soul waits for Yahweh more than they that watch for the morning. I say, more than they that watch for the morning. Let Israel hope in Yahweh, for with Yahweh there is mercy. With him is plenteous redemption, and he shall redeem Israel from all his iniquities. Amen. Psalms 130. Blessed love, my brothers and sisters. Shalom Aleichem. This is Joseph Israel, and you are tuned into the Kingdom Road radio show. And once again, give thanks for life, and a joy to be here with you all today. Today is a very special show. Well, all of them are special, but each day, each time we keep moving forward in this progressive phase of studying and sharing the message together. And today is a very special show because it's during the 7th month, during the feast month, and right before coming up this weekend is Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. So today's show is going to be all about that, the atonement between Elohim and man. And as the Psalms was bringing out here, the children of Israel, we are crying out of the depths, that the Most High does hear our voice, and that if the Almighty truly took account to all the wrongs that we do, who should stand? But the Most High, with him there's forgiveness. And the Almighty's ability to forgive allows him, it says, but there is forgiveness with thee, that thou mayest be feared. Because how awesome the Almighty is. He's so merciful and so kind. And, when we see the Father in this sight, now always knowing that the Almighty is perfectly loving and yet perfectly just in all things. And so the love allows him to forgive, but the justice also, is his rules do stand, is what I'm saying. So we have the truth that sets us free. And the truth is I'm going to read 1 Timothy 2:5-6 and also Romans 5:11. I'm going to read them together. There is one Elohim and one mediator between Elohim and man, the man Mashiach, Yahshua, who gave himself a ransom for all, to be testified in due time. We also joy in Elohim through our Master Yahshua Mashiach, by whom we have now received the atonement. Okay, so Yahshua is the covering. He is the atonement. Now, a beautiful way to look at the word atonement in English is at one mint. If you just at one mint. Basically what has happened here is that because of man's falling short, his sins, man is not one with the Creator, and what is going to happen is in the full restitution of all things that were lost in Adam, there will be a oneness with our Creator. His laws will be written on our hearts, and he will be everything to all of us. And it says so in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 28. It says, or 27 and 28. He, speaking about the Messiah's reign. Well, I should just read 24 through 28. Most people know that the Messiah reigns for 1,000 years. And one thing that is a misconception is that the Messiah's reign, his 1,000-year reign, is a reign of peace. Now, the Messiah is the Prince of Peace. That was last week's radio show. However, he fights a spiritual war, and it's a spiritual fight. And it says in Psalms 110 that he will rule in the midst of his enemies. Okay? And so we're going to find out here that at the end of his 1,000-year reign, the last enemy will be destroyed. And that last enemy is death. And so you will see that the enemies of mankind, of the Messiah, of the Almighty, the enemies to creation will all be removed. And this is what he does during his 1,000-year reign. This is bringing us back to the at-one-ment, the true atonement, when everything will be what it once was in the Garden of Eden. So the Messiah's reign, verse 24, 1 Corinthians 15. Then comes the end, when he shall have delivered up the kingdom to Elohim, even the Father, when he shall have put down all rule and all authority and power. For he must reign, Yahshua must reign, till he has put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. For he has put all things under his feet. But when he says all things are put under him, it is manifest that he is accepted, which did put all things under him. So everything will be put under the Messiah's feet, except the one who gave Yahshua the authority, which is the Father. Obviously, Yahweh, the Almighty, the Everlasting One, is always the most exalted one. Verse 28, and when all things shall be subdued unto him, then shall the Son also himself be subjected unto him that put all things under him, that Elohim may be all in all, so that the Elohim, Yahweh, may be all things to everybody. And so that is the point here. So this atonement is a very deep thing, and we have the love and justice of the Father shown in the Torah and the pictures and foreshadows of the tabernacle and the rituals of the Day of Atonement, the sacrifices, and all of these are prophetic pictures of the greater things to come. And these are the realities is what the Messiah is going to do. He is the true atonement for the human race. Now, the word atonement means, from the Webster Dictionary, a satisfaction or repairing for a wrong or injury, an amends. And in the second definition, says reconciliation of Elohim and humankind will be accomplished through Mashiach, through Christ, it says in the Webster's. So what we see here is that they got it pretty right, So this is why atonement is a good word to be used for the word kippur. However, kippur also means it means to cover over. So the Hebrew word kippur or kafar means to cover, to expiate, cancel, appease, make atonement, forgive, be merciful, pacify, pardon, purge away, make reconciliation. All right, so what is it that we have to make reconciliation for? And this goes all the way back to the beginning. Bereshit, Genesis, chapter 2. And let's see here, chapter 3. Actually, I was going to read chapter 2. Sorry about that. All right, so chapter 2 says, giving the commandment to the original people that were Adam and Chava. They were put into the garden, Gan Eden, and they were able to dress it and till it, and they were given, they gave names to all the animals and all of these things, and they had wonderful fruits and vegetables. And Yahweh said unto them in verse 16 of chapter 2 of Genesis, and Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. Okay, so this is the beginning. This is the first true command, that man must prove his obedience to his Creator. Now, what ended up happening is that it was suggested to the woman that she could eat it by the serpent, the devil, and it's actually told them that there was some benefit to them, that if they were to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And in verse 6, the woman says, and when the woman saw the tree was good for food, and it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. So they actually sinned. The woman was tricked by the devil's lies, and Adam fell into sin. He chose to disobey. The Almighty spoke directly to him. He knew the commandments, and yet he chose to follow through with this disobedience, knowing that he would die in the day that he ate of it. Now, this brings up another good point. So did he die in the day that he ate of it, in the 24-hour day? No, he did not die in the day that he ate of it, but he did die before 1,000 years. He died, he lived to be 936 years, I think. 936 years. Let's see here. Yes, 930 years. All the days of Adam were 930 years. So Adam lived 930 years. So we have this scripture in Peter, and it's also Moshe speaks about it, but in the book of Peter, or more correctly, Kepha, it says this. In the second book of Peter, chapter 3, verse 8, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with Yahweh as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. So Adam did die within 1,000-year day. No one has lived a day with Yahweh. Yahshua, the Messiah's reign, is 1,000 years. This is the day that he was speaking of, and this is also the day of. It's the true Sabbath day. It's his 1,000-year reign is actually the true Sabbath day, and this is actually the time when all things will be restored. So we have here that Adam lived that time and lost his blessing in a paradise earth, and he did die in that day. And so this brings out to the point of the true justice of the Almighty, the true justice that he had to follow through. Now, nothing could have broken the Almighty's heart more than seeing his perfect creation fall from perfection, and they would have to die. And so we know that the Almighty provided a way for them to be able to be saved and to be taken out of this condition. And so he provided the ransom. And he provided the ransom, and this had to be, it was set for the future, and it had to be an equal to the fall of Adam. Adam was perfect before he fell, and the ransom had to be equal to what Adam was before he fell, and that was actually a perfect man. But how would we get another perfect man, since all of us are descendants of Adam? And so that's what we find here, that all the children of Adam were sentenced to death. But see, we find here that the attributes of the Almighty, they have to be perfectly true. So the Most High had to be, he had to sentence Adam to death to prove that what he said stands 100%. And if we do not respect our Father's commandments, then there's no hope for the future of the universe. Can you imagine what would happen in the heavens if the angels saw that the Almighty loved Adam so much that he couldn't follow through with his commandment, his warning? And so the justice was served. However, the Almighty is loving. In this predicament, the Most High's wisdom came through. and the Almighty's wisdom was perfect to make a way so that Adam and his creatures could regain this paradise earth and regain eternal life that they would have had they remained obedient. And so this is actually the idea of atonement, the need for a covering, a need for expiation. And so we actually find here that in the ancient times that time passed and mankind went through a terrible destruction with the flood, and only 8 survived. There was many people born, but only 8 survived, and Noah and his family. And they came out and repopulated the earth, and they were given the commandments of things to eat, how to eat them, how to love one another, how to have the sanctity of life. And they had, the Most High's commandments, but again, mankind disobeyed. Mankind went astray at Babel Tower and rebelled against the Most High. But Noah and his son Shem and a great grandson Abram kept the faith. And so this takes us to Abram, who was later became Abraham, and he was called out from the disobedient people from his father's house and was promised. And notice what happens here through this promise. If you turn to Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. Now Yahweh said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house into a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curses thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And this part is what I want to stress here. In thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And so all of a sudden, there's a little glimpse of hope that somehow through Abraham, all the families of the earth are going to be blessed. Now, so the Most High begins to shine light according to his purpose to bless the human race once again, because at this point they had all gone astray, and they were all dying, and they were suffering, and the world was lost. But the Most High began to call his prophet, and he actually gave him these many visions and many promises, and so it began to open up this beautiful truth. And let's see here. I want to go to Genesis chapter 17. Okay, so Abraham, he did not have a son, and the promise was that he would have a son. Actually, in the chapter 13, it says, "For the land which," chapter 13, verse 15, "For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth. So if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed be numbered." And so, but Abraham at this point did not have a son, let alone considering that all of the earth would be filled, as the dust of the earth, and Abraham's seed would be. So these were amazing promises. And now turn to 17, and the Most High gives him another promise, and it says, verse 5, "Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be called Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee and their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be an Elohim unto thee and to thy seed after thee." Okay, and so he goes on and tells about the seed and the blessings, and gives him the covenant of circumcision. And then it goes on and he tells him about the son that was going to come and be the blessing, and that his name, in verse 19 it says, "And Elohim said to Sarah, that Elohim said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed forever. So all of a sudden Isaac comes in, and this is the one who it all hinges on. Now this takes us to a very special chapter where after Isaac was born, what I'm getting to here is the first picture of the atonement sacrifice. And the Most High told Abraham to take his son and go to the mountain, land of Moriah, the mountains of Moriah, and offer a burnt sacrifice. And but this time the burnt sacrifice would be his son, his only begotten son through his wife Sarah. You know, he did have Ishmael, but his true only son through his wife that he loved. And as they're going up to do this, Isaac wonders. Isaac spoke to Abraham, his father, and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am, my son." And he said, "Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?" And this is prophetic. And Abraham said, "My son Elohim will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering." So they went, both of them together. Okay, so when they got to the top, there was no lamb, but Isaac laid down, and Abraham was ready to sacrifice him. He had the knife raised, but then the angel stopped him, said, "Don't hurt the child." And then they gave him a goat, or a ram, actually. And basically what happened there was once the ram, they sacrificed the ram in his stead, and Abraham called the name of the place Yahweh Yireh, because on that day in the mountain of Yahweh it was seen. The Most High provide. And the angel of Yahweh called to Abraham out of heaven a second time and said, "By myself have I sworn, says Yahweh, because thou hast done this thing, and thou wilt tell thy son, thy only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and the sand which is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of its enemies." Okay? "And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice." So here, in a great trial, Abraham overcame, and even more than what he could have ever known, what he was picturing there and acting out. And this lamb that the Most High was to provide was still to come. But Isaac was the type. Now, there was many other pictures and foreshadows. We have actually the Day of Atonement. When the Israelites were taken out of Egypt, they were given this Day of Atonement as part of the commandments. You'll find it in Leviticus chapter 23. Obviously, the full rituals were found in Leviticus chapter 16. But one of the holy days of the year for Israel, and it says here, Leviticus 23, chapter 27. "Also on the 10th day of the 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement, and it shall be a holy convocation unto you. And you shall afflict your souls and offer an offering made by fire to Yahweh. And you shall do no work in the same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before Yahweh your Elohim." Okay, so this is the day that they need forgiveness. So what we find here is in these commandments, the Most High is showing Israel, because we do fall short, that this time there would be a yearly time to purge out all the sins of the nation, and even the whole world eventually, you know. And this would, but what happens is all they could offer were bulls and goats. Now it's impossible for those to be equal to Adam, so these had no lasting effect. But the point is that the Almighty made a way for Israel to be forgiven, because they did fall short, and this shows the mercy and the wisdom of the Almighty. Now, note that there's a beautiful thing in this, in the sense that these numbers, they speak a lot. It says the 10th day of the 7th month. Now, numbers are used in the scriptures to symbolize things. Now, of course, literally on the 10th day of the 7th month, and this is actually going to be this Friday night, this Shabbat night at sundown to Saturday night at sundown is going to be the 10th day of the 7th month. People are doing things. Some days are a day behind that. Some people are doing it 2 days behind that. There's different people that cite it differently, but anyways, all those confusions will be worked out in the near future. But regardless, this beautiful time comes, and the 10th day. Now, what does the 10 represent in the scriptures? It represents earthly complete. It says an earthly complete number, and 7 is a heavenly perfect, or heavenly perfect completeness. Heavenly completeness. So you have a day in which it's earthly complete and heavenly complete, which gets into what we talked about a few weeks ago about the new covenant, the Brit Chadashah, and the new earth. You know, the Kodesh Aretz, you know, the new earth, the renewed earth. And basically what we have here is a new heavens and a new earth wherein dwells righteousness. Well, how does that happen? All because of the Messiah's sacrifice. And what the Day of Atonement in the Israel in the 7th month on the 10th day this is basically a time of earthly and heavenly completeness. And that's what this atonement will atone and bring everything in the heavens and the earth back into complete harmony. Now, however, so this was to be a complete Sabbath, and we will keep it as a Sabbath. And the Israelites denied themselves; they wouldn't eat. It's a fast day to reflect and to offer these sacrifices through the priesthood. The priesthood, you know, Aaron would offer a sacrifice for himself, and but the beautiful thing is that the Almighty does have a lamb that He's going to provide, or He did provide. It's already been fulfilled. That actually has come and has paid the price for our sins. And we find that the prophet John the Baptist is what he's called by people today, Yochanan. When he saw Yahshua coming, the next day, John chapter 1, verse 29, the next day John, seeing Yahshua coming unto him, said, Behold the Lamb of Elohim, which takes away the sins of the world. So this prophet declared it. He saw him. This is the Lamb that Elohim will provide. He is the one. And Yahshua is the Lamb. Actually, so that gets into the Passover and stuff. The Passover sacrifice and the meal of the Passover has many pictures and foreshadows of the Messiah, His reign, and the accomplishment to deliver us from the oppression and the devil's system. And the Day of Atonement, it highlights the atoning work that the Messiah does, that covers and brings the true forgiveness to the human race. And so, like I read earlier in Romans 5:11, we also enjoy in Elohim through our Master Yahshua, by whom we have now received the atonement. Okay, so Yahshua is the one who brings the atonement. Now, and this is what it was all speaking about. He brings the greater sacrifice that brings the true results. Now, so Yahshua came. Most people, I would think, are familiar that the Messiah was killed on Aviv 14 and 2,000 years ago. And he was a perfect man. He upheld the Torah perfectly. He wasn't born through the same stock as of the children of Adam through a regular earthly dad and mother, but how had Yahweh placed a pure seed inside the woman, Miriam, his mom, and she gave birth to a perfect son without the inherited sin of Adam. And Yahshua overcame all trials that were thrown at him and remained perfect and upright and against all the persecution and all the onslaught of the devil and his organization. And Yahshua overcame all things for us, and he became the true high priest, which Aaron was picturing. And when you get into the Hebrew, the word for sacrifices and stuff, they knew that this was actually when they would use the animal would die instead of them. and they would confess their sins on the animal, and they knew that the animal was going to die instead of them, but proving that they actually deserved to die, and or were willing to die, but since they couldn't, it didn't make sense to die, so they wanted to live. So the Almighty someone else was going to come and die so that we might live, is what I'm trying to say. And we find here in the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 1, for the Torah, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices which they offered year by year continually make the comers thereunto perfect. Okay, so there was pictures and foreshadows showing us that something was coming. For then would they not have ceased to be offered, because the worshippers once purged should have no more conscience of sins. But in those sacrifices there is a remembrance again made of sins every year. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and goats should take away sins. Wherefore when he comes into the world, Messiah, he says, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body thou hast prepared for me. And burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin thou hast no pleasure. Then said I, lo, I come in the volume of the book, it is written of me, to do thy will, O Elohim. Above when he said, sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings and offering sin thou wouldest not, neither hast pleasure therein, which are offered by the law. Then he said, lo, I come to do thy will. He takes away the first, that he may establish the second. Okay, now, he didn't take away the Torah, but he took away the rituals that they were doing to establish the reality of the true atonement work that the Messiah has come to do. When he gave up his life on that day, he was fulfilling all of these things, by which will we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Yahshua the Messiah once and for all. Okay? Every priest stands daily ministering and offering oftentimes the same sacrifices, which can never take away sins. But this man, Yahshua the Messiah, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down at the right hand of Elohim, from now on expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. For by one offering he has perfected forever them that are sanctified. Okay, so this is the most beautiful thing. And now the covenant, those that are sanctified through this, the new covenant is written on our hearts. And he did it once and for all. So he becomes the true covering, the expiation. And notice, one thing to understand here is that he gave up his life as a man. And now he sits at the right hand of the Father in the highest places in the heavens. So that means, just simply put, he's not coming back as a man. Because the whole thing is that he gave up his life as a man. If he were to take up his life again as a man, then he would have not sacrificed his life as a man. So when he was resurrected, he wasn't given an earthly body. He was given a heavenly body, and he now lives in the heavens. And it's so bright and powerful and wonderful that when Paul saw even a glimpse, when he was on the road to Damascus, he was blinded. It's so powerful. Yahshua says this about himself in the book of John, chapter 10. He says, I am the good shepherd. Okay, let's see. He says, I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. Okay? So just saying, Yahshua, the good shepherd, gives his life for the sheep. And that's exactly what he did. And verse 10 says, verse 18, actually we'll do 17. John 10, 17, 18. Therefore does my Father love me, because I lay down my life that I might take it again. No man takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This is the commandment that I received from my Father. So Yahshua was giving up his life of his own free will. This was his offering. It says, Yahweh so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. so that whoever should believe in him should not perish. Joshua says, he has come to give us life for the sheep. Behold the Lamb of Elohim that takes away the sins of the world. Isaac was the type. Remember, and it's through Isaac shall Israel be called. So this great atoning work that Joshua does, he leads the way. And but he's not come back as a man on this earth. That's why it says in Matthew 24, speaking about his return, what people call the second coming, but really is better understood as second presence. He says, if they say I'm in the desert, do not go there. If they say I'm in the inner chambers or somewhere, anywhere, do not go there, because he comes back like the rising of the sunshine, and more bringing understanding and gathering his people and actually doing this work of restitution of all things. And as we continue on in this beautiful day, as it says in the Proverbs, the path of the just is as the shining light, which shines more and more into the perfect day. There will come a time when there's no more sorrow or sickness or death or pain. There's no more confusion. And everybody is actually being restored to perfection. And this all is rooted in the great atonement work that Yahshua has done. Yahshua is the one mediator between Elohim and man. So basically, we can actually say here that the theme of the Almighty's word is really rooted in this great atonement work between Elohim and man. And the reason we needed an atonement was because man disobeyed originally, and we all inherited the sin from Adam. And therefore, we were alienated from this true fellowship with our Father. And yet Yahshua came, and where Adam disobeyed, Yahshua obeyed, and has made the right a way for people to gain life. Now, this was always the Father's purpose. It said, before the Lamb that was slain before the foundation of the world. So before even there was any creation, in some ways, the Almighty had already figured this out. And this is all part of his divine purpose. Now, let's see here. Getting into the Isaac thing again, if we go to Romans chapter 9, Paul actually clues us in that as he interprets the Isaac meaning the Messiah. Speaking about Israel and who true Israel is, Paul in Romans 9, verse 6 through 8. It's not as though the word of Elohim has taken none effect, for they are not all Israel which are of Israel, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called, or in the Messiah shall thy seed be called. That is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of Elohim, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. So, just because someone was a fleshly descendant of Abraham doesn't mean that, but there was a promised nation that was to come, and through that nation, and through that seed even, that through the Isaac, all families of the earth could be blessed and will be blessed and have a chance at full restitution and to live a life in a perfect situation. And all that's required of them will be obedience. And so this great one to come, which was pictured by Isaac, has come, and he has offered the true atonement sacrifices and is on the way to restoring creation to perfection, so that there will, and the last enemy to be destroyed is death. Joshua will set us free from all the bondage. Now, let's see here. Some more scriptures I want to go over. Let's go from Romans. Let's go back to Romans 5. Okay. Verse 1. Therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with Elohim through our Master Yahshua the Messiah, by whom also we have access by faith into this grace wherein we stand and rejoice in hope of the magnificence of Elohim. Okay, so this beautiful understanding that he sent his son, and who has become the expiation, who has made expiation for us. We have faith, we believe this. We now have peace with Elohim through our Master Yahshua Messiah. And we're no longer destined to death and destruction as long as we are obedient to the faith. Because faith without works is dead. But we rejoice in the hope of the magnificence of Elohim. How wonderful is his purpose to restore the human race. And how wonderful and true the justice that he has sentenced us all to death through Adam's sin, and he was true to that. But however, how loving and wise to make a way that satisfies justice, and that Yahshua purchased us and bought us and redeemed us. That's what that word means. Repurchased. He paid the price, a perfect life for a perfect life, that now we have a chance for eternal life. And okay, let's see here. Verse 6 of chapter 5. For when we were yet without strength, in due time the Messiah died for the wicked. Okay? See, there's another scripture that says, Yahweh takes no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but wants the wicked to change from their evil ways. So even the death of the wicked, the disobedient, all have a chance. And the Messiah died for everybody. So everyone that's ever lived and died, before or after that he came and gave up his life, has been purchased, and we'll get a chance at life again. And so that's what it means here. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet peradventure for a good man some would even dare to die. But Elohim commendeth his love towards us, in that while we were yet sinners, Mashiach died for us. Much more than, being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from wrath through him. For if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to Elohim by the death of his son, much more being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. Okay? And not only so, but we also joy in Elohim through our Master Yahshua Messiah, by whom we have now received the reconciliation. So that's what the atonement means, that the breach in the agreement, the original injury, the broken covenant, the broken bond between Elohim and man, because man chose to disobey the loving commands of our Father, has now been reconciled. And so when we have the reconciliation, the amends, the atonement, the at-one-ment, now we can come back to being one with our Father. Verse 12 of Romans 5. Wherefore, as by one man sin entered the world, that was Adam, and death by sin. And so death passed upon all men, for all have sinned. And that's what we have faced, all the human race. No one has been above the law. Even the righteous prophets, they all died. And as it says in another part, for all have sinned and come short of the excellence of Elohim. Okay? So, verse 13 of Romans 5. For until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over them that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him who was to come. So even before the Torah was given, and Yahweh outlined exactly to minute detail what sin was, he gave us 613 commandments that shows us very clearly. I mean, he explained it a lot of detail into what is obedience and what is disobedience. And but yet man was still dying for even the sins. And even people who didn't directly consciously break a commandment like Adam, they still were dying. And then he throws in Adam was a figure of someone who was to come, the next perfect man, Yahshua Messiah. Verse 15. But not as the offense, so also the free gift. For if through the offense of one many be dead, much more the grace of Elohim and the gift by grace, which is by one man, Yahshua the Messiah, has abounded unto many. So actually, I'm going to read that in a different translation, but I think you could get to the point. It's such a beautiful statement. But not as the fall, so is the gracious gift. For if by the fall of one that many died, much more the favor of Elohim, even that gracious gift, by the one man, Yahshua Messiah, abounded unto many. And not as though one having sinned, and not as through one having sinned is the free gift. For indeed the sentence was from one to condemnation, but the gracious gift from many offenses to righteousness. Okay, so basically one mistake brought condemnation upon all. But the gracious gift is now we have many offenses. This one gift, Yahshua the Messiah's sacrifice, brings many to righteousness. Verse 17. Besides, if by the fall of the one death reigned throughout that one, so by the fall of Adam death reigned, much more will those having received the abundance of the favor and the righteousness reign in life through the one, the Mashiach, the anointed, Yahshua. Therefore, indeed, as through one offense sentence came on all men to condemnation, so also through one righteous act sentence came upon all men to justification of life. For as through the disobedience of one man, the many were constituted sinners, so even through the obedience of the one, the many will be constituted righteous. Okay, so this is the most beautiful thing. Look how perfectly. So we know that everybody that's ever lived, from Adam until now, has died and gone into the grave. That's a lot of people. And it's saying one mistake that Adam made brought death unto all these people. However, this one righteous act that Yahshua did and dying on this earth, laying down his life, even though he had not sinned and was completely obedient and observed the ways commandments perfectly, he actually, as it says, if you keep these commandments, you will live by them. He would live forever. But he chose to give up his life as a man forever so that we could all live. So that means everybody that's ever died under Adam's curse gets a chance for life and obedience under the Messiah's righteous act. So look, perfectly balanced. Again, justice, balance with wisdom, love, the attributes of the Almighty, the favor, we rejoice. As I read, I'm going to read it again. We also joy in the Elohim through our Master Yahshua, by whom we now receive the atonement. There is one Elohim and one mediator between Elohim and men, the man Yahshua Messiah, who gave himself a ransom for all, to be testified in due time. So you're going to see the prophets return. You're going to see your loved ones come back. This is actually, it says about there's going to be a great resurrection. And everybody that's in the tombs, everyone that's ever died is going to come back. He's going to give them a chance at life in a paradise earth. So the Messiah is going to set everything straight. He's going to rule until he removes all enemies. And then the last enemy to be destroyed is death. And there will be no more death. There won't be any more sorrow. There won't be any more pain. Everything is going to be testified in due time. Now, when as you get ready for this atonement day to observe it, in the way that you observe it, worshiping the Father, and remember who the atonement is. And there's a reason why, no longer does mankind need to slaughter animals, because what the animals pictured, the true sacrifice, was sacrificed in Yahshua the Messiah. And now we can rejoice that there has been atonement and live our life for Yahweh and his commandments, allow his law to be written in our heart, and live, get ready, prepare yourself for life and blessings, and spread this good news to everybody. This is more than just, so Yahshua's sacrifice is the beginning. It's the foundation of everything that's going to happen good for the human race throughout eternity. And, that's why this day was marked on the Hebrew calendar of the scriptures, the 10th day of the 7th month. It marks earthly complete number with a heavenly complete number, and it's going to bring a new heavens, a new earth, and a new heavens wherein dwelt righteousness. With Yahshua's guidance, all will be purified, disobedience will be removed, the affliction will not rise up a second time. He will put all enemies under his feet. The meek will inherit the earth. The humble, the teachable will inherit the earth. Though we see, I'm just recapping here, though we see that all people have died that have ever lived and suffered in this decrepit system, and many people have never even had even a very long life. People have died of diseases. All these things should have never happened, but because man chose to disobey, now we do know the knowledge of good and evil. But now people are going to be able to see the true knowledge of good, what happens when you do obey. And they have the choice before them, and we're blessed in these early days to know this beautiful information. And one day this knowledge of Yahweh is going to cover the earth as the waters covers the sea, as he begins to fulfill everything in the Torah and the prophets through his son Yahshua the Messiah, who gives everything meaning, who gives everything its effect. So as we go into this Day of Atonement and these festival times, it's all rooted around him and his sacrifice. And let us walk with the King. Let us walk in the path of righteousness. Let us meditate in the Torah day and night. May we be filled with his Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKadosh, to be able to discern these deep things. May we love Yahweh with all our heart, all our mind and soul. Love our neighbors as we love ourselves. Live these commandments and just rejoice, my brothers and sisters, because that's how special that you are. You are so special. The Most High sent his Son, and he gave his life, and he purchased you, and he gave his life for you so that you might live and not be under the curse. And so this is the good news. And that Son now lives and reigns with his Father in heaven, and it's in the process of setting up a kingdom, an everlasting kingdom that will never cease to exist, but will list into eternity, and it will bring every blessing that you could ever imagine. The eyes haven't seen, the ears haven't heard of the blessings in store for those that trust and wait and have faith in Yahweh. And so what is going to be proven is that the promise given to Abraham, that through Isaac, and even there's more even to this, but through Isaac, who pictured Yahshua, all families of the earth will be blessed. This is going to prove true. Yahweh be with you all, and may the Most High be with you during this festival time. And hopefully that this show has helped you understand the true atonement that Yahshua gave, that he is the covering, and he made expiation, and is in the process of the full reconciliation. And one day there will be a true at one-ment on this creation. We will all be at one with our Creator, as it rightfully should be. And so until next week, I will, have a blessed time. May you all be filled with the Spirit and truth, and have a wonderful Shabbat of Yom Kippur, and rejoice in the Great One that is the sacrifice, is the covering of us, of our sins and imperfections, and praise the Almighty for his wonderful purpose. And I love you all. You all are so special. Lift your head up high, because redemption is near. Shalom Aleichem.
road, the light of Zion, kingdom road, redemption time has come, kingdom road. Tell me, are you ready? Cross over Jordan. Are you ready to meet the promised land? Wisdom is crying, knowledge sings. Famine of your word in the land, kingdom road. We always in the sun, kingdom road. The light of Zion, kingdom road. Redemption time has come, kingdom road. He will lead, we must follow. This is reality, yes I know. Where he leads, blessings follow. That's why we trying on his kingdom road, kingdom road. We always in the sun, kingdom road. The light of Zion, kingdom road. Redemption time has come, kingdom road. Kingdom road. We always in the sun, kingdom road. The Lamb of Zion, kingdom road. Redemption time has come, kingdom
The views and opinions expressed during this broadcast are solely those of the speakers and are not necessarily the views or opinions of Lamb Radio or its affiliates. Individuals who speak in these broadcasts express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusion. Lamb Radio and its affiliates do not necessarily endorse or oppose any particular opinion or conclusion discussed in this broadcast.
Baruch haba b'shem Yahuwah. This is Revealing the Word. Today we are going to take a journey together and discover the hidden word of Yahuwah. So put on your broad-brimmed hats and get ready to excavate the word with us, because we Shema Elohim with you. Shalom. This is your host, Jessica Arianis of HaKol Kala Radio, and my special co-host, Eric Bissell. In this episode of Revealing the Word, we will discuss the word Ahav, or Ahaba, which is love, and our intimate relationship with Debar, the word. We will interview Nitza Moshe of Remnant Radio as she expounds upon the word Debar and gives us some insight into how this word works in our lives. Shalom, Eric.
Shalom, Jessica, and hello to the listeners there.
Out there in Radio Land. And Nitza Moshe, thank you for being with us today. How are you?
Shalom. Very good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited. I got two individuals that are ecstatic about the Paleo Hebrew together
on one show, I thought this would be interesting, especially since we will be opening up the word ahava as well as the word itself, which is debar. And I know you have lots to share about that word, Neitz. I know it's a passion of yours to cipher the word and to break it open so that we can get a revelation, a vision.
Amen.
Eric, I know that recently you officiated a wedding up in Canada, and you were asked to cipher that word ahava, or ahava, or ahab, which is love in Hebrew.
Well, I believe it was our last recording we did together. I read through this. So the listeners which have heard that might find this familiar, but sometimes it's good to hear something a second time. So it's about 5 minutes or so. I could go ahead and just read what I wrote up about this word, if you'd like.
Please share with us.
I was asked to simply look at the word ahava and discuss it. So there's nothing necessarily mystical, but my study is literally just looking at the way that a word is spelled, looking at the meaning of each letter, looking at the meaning of every pair of two letters, and then using the dictionary, if there's a three-letter verb root, looking at what that means. And sometimes there's various meanings because there's different vowel points, and in Paleo-Hebrew I've never seen any vowel points with it, so I take into consideration all the various meanings that any particular three-letter verb root, you might say, has, even if the meanings seem to be rather diverse, completely one disconnected to the other. I try to take them all into consideration, and similar to mathematics where you have fractions that look like they're completely different denominators, then you find what they call the lowest common denominator. So when looking at various different meanings of a word, which don't seem related at all, I try to find a basis of connection, like the lowest common denominator, that I can wrap up together what might be the possible essence of the word. So in which case, having a word with meanings which look like they're not connected actually forces you to find another, you might say, level of depth within the word that brings them all together. So actually, when you find a word with meanings which don't seem to have any relationship to each other, it's a great opportunity for finding more in a word than had you found a simple definition where they all matched. So this talk here, this speech, this debar, about the word ahava, I'll just go ahead and read it. The Hebrew word for love is ahava, a four-letter word spelled aleph, hey, bet, hey. Hebrew is an engineered language. Looking closer, dissecting the word, the prefix aleph, hey means I am or I will. At least that's the way it's used when you see the translation in the scripture, wherever you see the phrase in English, I am, or perhaps I will, you go over and you look at the word in the Hebrew, and it typically starts with the letter aleph. It's personal, intentional, volitional, proactive, and determined. It's this attitude of the individual that's speaking or doing something. The next two letters, hey, bet, literally is the verb meaning give, and the word bet hey is translated as in her, or with her, or through her. So ahava could be read, love is I will give through her, in her, and with her. It is not I will give to her, yet it is the expression of the author, the I am, choosing to project himself through the vehicle of the her. Again, the he suffix of that word is typically rendered as her, though you could look at many words that end in a hey and you'll see that they're not translated as saying the word her, but it's this expression or revealing or opening up of the words you might say. For example, the word zadik is righteous. The word zadikah, ending in the letter hey, would be righteousness, which is the word righteous being expressed as righteousness. So that's the typical example.
So that makes me think of the word for the word give in Hebrew is yahab, or it has the yud prefix to the word ahab, which technically or literally actually means to give or to ascribe something, to give or to bestow, to set upon, to set or to take upon, and it's this gift. It's a gift giving. So what I'm hearing you say in regards to the word ahav, it seems to me like this word is something that is bestowed upon you. It's given.
Sure. The interesting thing about Hebrew is I heard someone tell me the other day that Hebrew has rules, and quite often there's the breaking of those rules. When you look at grammatical, you might say structure or precedence or, well, grammatical rules. For example, in English, there's this saying, I before E except after C. Well, the word foreign doesn't have a C, but it's F-O-R-E-I-G-N. So it's a broken rule of I before E except after C. So that's similar to Hebrew. So when you're learning regular grammar in Hebrew, you have to remember that there's numerous exceptions. So these things which we see as a tendency are quite often found to be otherwise when you look through the scriptures as the way that other authors or other publishers have chosen to translate a word. One of the things I've tried to do is actually notice how certain Hebrew words are translated, which sets up, you might say, the frame of mind or the typical way that translators encounter a situation. And they're all over the place, which means that you can't, by learning Hebrew, you can't be too locked in to a rule of how the language works. I mean, there are tendencies, but they're not necessarily rules. Anyway, one of the things I did with studying this word ahava is to compare it to another word that's spelled similarly, and that's another method, another mechanism for figuring out what a word means. If you can find a similar spelled word with a type of translation, then it'll give you some clue as to the way the structure of the word affects what it really means. So this is spelled Aleph, Hey, Bet, Hey. The similar word is Aleph, Hey, Yod, Hey. So Aleph, Hey, Yod, Hey is Ehyeh, which is actually the word used in Exodus 3 when Moshe was at the burning bush and he said, Who shall I say sent me? And the voice speaking to him said, Ehyeh asher Ehyeh. Tell them Ehyeh sent you. So if we're looking at Aleph, Hey, Bet, Hey compared to Aleph, Hey, Yod, Hey, the difference is the Yod and the Bet in the third letter position. So, but this word Aleph, Hey, Yod, Hey states that the self of the first person, the Aleph, is expressing through the substance of what he puts his hand to make or do. That's the Yod. So the same way that an artisan speaks through his craftsmanship, or as a musician speaks through the notes she plays, so the heavens declare the glory of Elohim. The earth and its inhabitants portray his majesty. And there what I'm trying to do is read how you would look at Aleph, Hey, Yod, Hey. So the Aleph is expressed, that's Hey. In the Yod, that what the hand is put toward to create, is expressed, Hey. So in seeing this word, Ehyeh, Yahuwah Savot has portrayed himself as he gives himself into his people. So that means the people of Israel, his people, are a conduit through the agency of Israel, which is also the same model as through the Mashiach. So this sets up this picture of a transmission linkage, a progressive order of sharing responsibility from one to the next. So what I see here in these letters is that the picture is that the husband's glory is expressed through his wife. He gives himself in her, she expresses his intention, as she herself is the embodiment of his purpose or his heart. She then is the container of him, which is the meaning of the word bet, a container. So as the Aleph's bet, or the bet that belongs to the Aleph, so is she, his work of art, or his dwelling place. So you could say as a relay, it's the husband's position to receive from Elohim, who freely gives, and then the husband exalts Yahuwah in giving to his wife, who displays her beauty in giving others what has been given to her. And that's the role of, you might say, a human husband and wife. It also describes the role of Israel to Yahweh. Yahweh gives to Israel, Israel as the priest to the world, supposed to turn and give Yahuwah's stuff to everyone else. freely given. Which means if something is not flowing, it's the man's responsibility to go to the source, to Yahuwah, the proverbial fount of living water, which in Hebrew is expressed as Mayim Chayim, to make sure that he is receiving properly all that's available to them. Therefore, if there's something wrong, man has got to fix it. But see, men are designed to fix things. So every time there's a problem, if it's a physical thing, we look for another tool to apply to the situation. And if it's an interpersonal thing, men are always trying to fix things. And sometimes they get bashed around for that, but they're actually designed to do that.
So, Eric, it made me think of, here you are talking about this giving freely. And when we think about that reciprocal relationship between Yahuwah and his people and that line of communication that's being restored in this hour, it really is an expression of love that Yahuwah speaks to us as well as listens. And so I was actually talking to another person today, and we were talking about a symbiotic relationship and why there seems to be so much conflict within relationships, not just the relationships within our own homes, but as we take that dysfunction out into the body of Messiah, we find then that there seems to be the same conflict, whether it's through, arguments. We have all this division taking place. We have all this judgment and people saying, well, it should be this moon, it should be that, it should be this. You have all this division within the camps, and it doesn't seem like we can remain cohesive. I was telling this person, I believe personally that it's because we don't understand the dynamics of a relationship. And when we come together as functioning cells, which make up the whole of a body, we are cells. And when we come together, we're not connecting properly because, in my opinion, a lot of times we don't know as a cell what we're purposed to do. What is our purpose? How do we function as a whole? And so when you think about a nuclear family, a father, a mother, and then you have your children, that's a nuclear family. And then it becomes a symbiotic relationship, one that feeds off of each other and thrives. And so if say for example, the mom knows her roles, she knows what her responsibilities are, and she's functioning every day as she sees herself, and then the children are doing the same. They function as children. They each know their role as far as like the eldest to the youngest and what they're required to do and expected to do. But say, for example, the dad has a drinking problem or he's an alcoholic and his role is being usurped and he's neglecting his role. And so what happens is, even though that's the case, they still begin to function, but it's called dysfunction. But they still have a working relationship with each other in that group. But what ends up happening is you see that through that channel or through that individual, conflict can come in because the individual doesn't know his position or his purpose. So there can be arguments, there can be strifes, and then there can be hostility, there can be all sorts of stuff that can come in through that individual because he's not functioning in his role. I think when we don't know our purpose, we contribute as a whole. What are we called to do? What is Yahuwah saying to us in this hour? What is the agenda? What's the plan here? And how does he determine to work through us? And when we can't hear him, it makes it difficult for that reciprocity to flow. It makes it difficult for us to flow within a body. And so then conflict can come in through that individual or through that source. And we then begin to look at other people and we begin to judge their works. We say, I don't like the way they do that, or I don't like the way they do this, or if they don't do things my way, or if they don't do things this way. Again, because we're not focusing on what we're called to do and simply doing it and allowing other people to do the same. So I believe that even in this hour, Yahuwah is restoring the line of communication so that he can bring purpose to the body on an individual level and on a corporate level so that we can begin to function harmoniously as a symbiotic entity. As we are in relationship with each other, we begin to function as a whole, as a complete, healthy body, which is the body of Messiah. And I think it was Dave who said earlier, it's not the pipe that receives the glory, but what flows through the pipe. And I thought that was interesting, that we need to recognize it's not the fact of who we are, but what's flowing through us. And when we can learn to flow, like the veins that allow the blood to flow through the body to cause it to be, so then we too hearing the voice of Yahuwah and receiving that love, that free gift, that free offering, receiving what he has for us, knowing that he loves and cares for us and that he's listening to us and that we are heard. We are heard. Not only is it Shema, Yahuwah, not only just hearing him, but knowing in our heart of hearts that he hears us as well. And when we have that right relationship, when our relationship with him is restored and it becomes a healthy flow, we can then begin to flow towards our neighbors. We begin to become a healthy organism, a living cell.
Well, if I could add one thing to what you're saying there.
Absolutely.
Is that it is Israel's burden to invite and even allure Yahweh to return to dwell with us, enthroned in us, in that we are all he's got, his kadoshi, as he calls it, his betrothed, beloved, set apart. So, in other words, it's not the people of the world who are going to invite Yahuwah to come back and dwell, you might say, even on the earth or in our presence. It's Israel that's supposed to do that. Israel's job is like the wife to the husband wanting to make the husband come home. Israel's job is to make Yahuwah want to come home to us. And as we remember how we are left to ourselves, abandoned, if we betray him, we're actually forsaken by our own treachery. It was Israel who turned away from Yahuwah, and he cast her aside, threw to her own devices. But he said he would return when Israel returned to him. So that's a picture that the woman's fidelity and gracefulness attract her husband's attention to be with her. So the word ahava could be read as, I will be with her. So that statement of the word is not just I will be in her or flowing through her, as you mentioned, the pipe and what flows through the pipe, but the fact that it could be read as the letter bet as with, Yahweh is basically expressing in the word love that he wants to be with his people. I will be with her. This is virtually a prophetic statement. And then the word ehyeh, aleph he yod he, could be read as the ever-flowing and outpouring. This is what flows through the conduit. Gives to the man, the Adam, who is the work of his hand, you might say as a constant waterfall flowing. So if you picture a river with this waterfall flowing, that's kind of a picture of what ehyeh means. And then if you look at the meaning of the word yod he vav he, Yahuwah, you could see that there's this hand which gives to the vav, which is this connector, which then turns around and expresses. So the man who gives to his wife, who is actually his own song, he causes her to exist. So the woman, she who has filled herself with her husband's generosity, sings. She translates his heart for others to hear. Her voice is this tangible gift, which is, you might say, the manifestation or the emanation of that which is otherwise invisible, which is just the husband's intention to give her. So her hands giving expressed freely as overflow to her family, they to the world around them. So this theme that you're talking about of Yahuwah ehyeh pouring out, and he is chosen, as he describes in the scripture, to pour out his heart, his intention, his words, his insights of wisdom and life vitality into Israel. And Israel's job obligation as his kadoshi, his betrothed, his wife, is to then give to the world. And when the world is languishing, as we see now around us, we can blame the world, we can blame the leaders of the world who make stupid decisions or who make decisions for their own gain. But when you look back at the scriptures, this is our fault, Israel's fault, because Israel has not been receiving of Yahuwah, the true, pure source of living water, and Israel then has not been content with Yahweh to let it flow through Israel to the rest of the world. And so we can actually look at the whole condition of what's here and say, we have got to get back in line to do what we're supposed to be doing. Otherwise, the world can get worse. And we can't blame the other people because they are taking over Israel's job description by running this place because we betrayed Yahweh.
Right. It's about purpose and function. And what I hear you saying is that this is our purpose. This is why we were created. We were created to receive or to hear, to be in communication or to be in communion with the one who Amar, the Debar, who speaks the word, and that word is brought forth in love, and genuine love will be an obedient expression of what he's conveying, his purpose, his intent. Reminds me of the Psalm 55:22. It says, "Cast your burden upon Elohim, and he shall sustain thee. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved." Well, that word burden right there is that word Yahavah. It's related to Ahava, or love, but with the yud prefix, and it literally means a burden, something given, something that is heavy, a gift. And again, it's related to the word love, or to give indiscriminately. So here, Yahuwah is saying, here is my burden. My burden is easy. My yoke is light. Here is my burden. Come learn of me. Right, Nitsa, I think you're really interested, and I know that you speak, or have spoken in the past about the word debar, and what that actually looks like to us, and I'm hoping that you'll explain a little bit about that. But I know back in Genesis, when Yahuwah created the man, it's in his image and in his likeness that he created him, and then it says he breathed. That means scattered seeds. So here we see a picture of Yahuwah scattering his seed, his DNA, he's replicating the pattern in which he was established, the uncreated one, and he is causing him to exist in that pattern, to be, to live, so that he could be a harmony, like I said, that symbiotic relationship, so he can be in harmony with his debar, with his word, not in conflict with it, but working together with it, so that he can produce after its own kind. And we see that pattern throughout history, the history of the word that was given to us. We see that pattern, that duplication, those cyclical patterns that seem to flow. And we also want to be brought back. We want to come back to that revelation that we were created to house his seed, so that we can produce after his kind, so that we can flourish and multiply here on earth, even in the Shamayim. So again, what does it mean then that he's giving to us in love his word, his debar? And how do we house that frequency or that debar? How do we house that pattern within us? Well, we would first have to understand, what is the debar? What is the word?
My turn?
Yes, ma'am.
You're setting me up. No. Okay. Well, the thing I like about the ancient Hebrew, and the reason I love it, is I obviously don't study it in depth. I don't have the time. But whenever I do a word study, whenever I'm doing my scripture studies, I don't want to just stop with the English or the modern Hebrew. I want to see the picture, because I think that whole concept of a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I think that one of the things I like about ancient Hebrew is that there are no vowel markings. There's a thing where you can kind of see it was, it is going to be. There's this bigger picture concept. I think of it as how Elohim looks down on the face of the earth. He has a much bigger picture or concept, and we get stuck on, looking down closely to things in detail sometimes. And so I like the idea that you can have block logic when you're looking at the language. You can open up your mind that it doesn't mean just this. You can use a Venn diagram, where you see the commonalities. And so that is one of the reasons why I love it so much, because it gives me much more understanding. It opens the block logic, and concept is that, okay, I can put this on the shelf, but I can put other things up there with it too, and then I can see a much bigger picture. It's like adding pieces to the puzzle, and I can rearrange them, and I can see different facets of his word and the understanding. And of course, I talk a lot about debar, mostly because it just shows up in everyday things. It shows up in science. It shows up, when the New Age movement and the scientists all talk about frequencies and vibrations and electromagnetic energy, because they don't have Elohim. They don't understand who the source is. But if we look at the letters, and this is the way I look at debar, is that you have a dalet, which is a door, and in ancient Hebrew it would have been like a tent flap, like an Indian, almost like an Indian loin, where you flap it up, but they would flap it up over the tent. And so when you move a door or a flap to a door or a window, then it's swinging back and forth. It's making waves. It's making vibrations. It's causing frequencies. And then the next letter is bet, which can be the house, the family, or can mean in, like inside of something. And then we have the resh or the rosh, which is the head, the beginning. And it's also very closely connected to the word order, when things are in order. And, of course, debar is part of that root, that family of words where we get the word the bumblebee or a bee colony. And what do bees do? They work very much in a colony and an order. So by just taking the pictures of the word debar, which gets translated into English as the word or the living word, you literally have a vibrating living word. And when we look at that in Genesis 1, 1, 2, and 3, we see that his breath, his words, his speaking vibrated and hovered over the water. And when you understand that water conducts electricity, which he is light and energy, and from that everything else was created. So, and I believe this is connected to the covenant in Jeremiah chapter 33, where he talks about and made a covenant with night and day. I think he's showing us the opposing forces, the positive and the negative. You know, if you're a New Agey person, you might say it's the yin and the yang. Most New Age people, people who are involved in witchcraft and other things, they don't understand and they do not realize that these things that they find to be true are not in the right context, and it's actually there in the Hebrew, and it's in the ancient Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew. And because of Dave Matthews, I've started beginning to look at numbers. So like we look at the words, and like Eric's very good at, you know, you look at the parent and you look at the roots and all the words that are connected to a word so that you get more revelation, more understanding. Well, there's a number system, and I was just watching a video where scientists are talking about there is a divine one person, of course they don't necessarily call him a person, creator. And they say it's all based on binary code, the 0 and the 1, nothing and something. And so when you start listening to this and understanding, oh my gosh, they're talking about the vital life force of the debar, of the living word that holds everything together. And so when I look at that word that Eric's talking about, ahav, which I believe gets translated into love usually, I went ahead and looked it up while he was talking, and it has a value or a numeric value of the number 8. And we all know that 8 is restoration. So love does cover a multitude of sins. Love is the answer. Of course, the problem is what defines love. And we know that love is what the Torah and the commandments define. To be righteous and to love is to do his commandments. But when we look at the words that are associated in the English connected to their Hebrew for the number 8, look at these words in connection to what you guys have been talking about, that the woman or the bride, Israel, his people, she is to receive that debar, that life-giving frequency and breath that he speaks out. Then she receives it. She gives it out because she is the multiplier. She is the vessel through which she receives his word, receives his seed, his light, his energy and life force, and she's the multiplier so that she produces children, so that the bride and his people, we produce through those vibrational frequencies of his love and his word to reproduce and grow the kingdom. And so look at some of these words that are said with. One of them is breath. When we receive his living breath, his life that he gave us, what does it do? It comes in and it goes out. It comes out. There are other words associated is, what I thought was really interesting, is breast. The breast produces milk. It produces life. And it feeds and it gives. And any baby would consider the breast to be love. That is their definition when they're at that age. And we have other words like affection, of course, love, longing. Even the word fish comes up. I haven't quite made those connections. Maybe Eric can do that because I'm not sure about fish other than it produces or gives meat and substance. But the idea is that debar and love and his word restores. It gives life. It gives breath. And it's interesting that even in the word ahava, you have the hay in there twice, and you're giving life. You're giving breath. And so this is why I encourage your listeners to get you a Strong's Concordance, but don't stop there. because that's just the beginning baby steps. Get to the Hebrew, get to the ancient or Paleo Hebrew, and start looking at the pictures and the numbers so that you can see how magnificent and ongoing his word is and all that he has to tell us. It's not just simple milk.
That's beautiful the way you expressed that word, debar, which is all that embodies Yahuwah himself. He is the debar, and the Yeshua is the offspring. Yahushua is the debar made flesh. It's the manifestation of all that Yahuwah is. Even the scriptures declare that Yahushua is the expressed image of the invisible Elohim. So I want to say something really quick. With that word debar, I want to give some information so that you can kind of see how it functions throughout the scripture, the body of scripture. Well, it's a masculine noun, and it basically means like what Nitsa said, word, speech, matter. And then she showed you a picture of how that word functions. But this word is used with a wide range of meanings, and I just want to share that really quick. This word debar signifies spoken words or speech. You can find that in Genesis 11:1, Isaiah 36:5, and Jeremiah 51:64. This word is defined as a command or a royal decree found in Esther 1:12, Esther 1:19. It is associated with the word report or tidings in Exodus 33:4, with advice in Judges 27, with poetic writings of David in 2 Chronicles 29:30. This word debar is associated with business affairs in 1 Chronicles 26:32. A legal cause in Exodus 18:16, the custom or manner of activity in Esther 1:13, and something indefinite, such as in Genesis 22:16. But most importantly was the use of this word debar to convey divine communication. Now, oftentimes that word, which is debar, would come forth as the word of Elohim, and it would signify the revelation that was given to the prophets. You can find that in 2 Samuel 7:4, Jeremiah 25:3, and Hosea 1:1. Again, to convey divine communication or line of communication, and oftentimes signify the revelation that was given to the prophets. So in the same manner, guess what? The 10 Commandments were literally called the 10 words of Elohim, the debar, the 10 debar of Elohim. I don't think I'm saying it properly, but it was called the 10 words of Elohim. And you can find that in Exodus chapter 34:28, as well as Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 13.
Well, if I could throw in a comment here.
Come on in.
Nietzsche, you had mentioned something about fish. One thing I found is that the concept associated with fish, you said perhaps it means meat or provisions, but fish have a tendency to multiply abundantly. And you were actually speaking of the concept of multiplication as being the woman's job description or role in the relationship. And one thing I found is that when fish are mentioned, it has to do with that aspect of, you might say, their reputation or their Shem, right? Because Shem is not just name or what label you have, but your renown or your occupation of what you're about, which multiplication is one key
that's awesome.
aspect.
Yeah, also, they would remind you, like the noon is often referred to as a fish, or like the seed or the semen, because it's life, the way it functions and looks. So that's pretty interesting.
I've actually heard the noon being related to the fish because the tail moves, and the frequency of the tail or the way that it moves causes life, or is similar to the way life is described as something that is full of energy or full of life, something that's vigorous, something that moves.
So, bearing that in mind, let me explain a little bit of a problem with Hebrew. So, it's said that the letter Nun is fish. And so you have Joshua, son of Nun, for example. But do you happen to know what the word that is translated fish, do you know what that word is?
That's Dagon.
Dagon is the name of the fish god, but the interesting thing is, the reason why it's called, dag is fish, but the word for tickle is dag. And the way you tickle is to wiggle your finger back and forth, which is a picture of the fish's tail. And something that you do tickle is dagon. So it's just an interesting thing that in Hebrew you take concepts which are literal words, but then they actually multiply to cover the whole scope of the subject matter. For example, sometimes they're exactly the opposite. For example, the word Pesach, as in Passover, means to jump over, but it also means to be lame, which is to say you're crippled, you can't walk or you can't jump. So that's just one little example of where a word and its opposite is exactly the same word. And if you look at the word for leg, which is regal, which is either leg or feet, if you look at the English word associated with it, where you get the consonantal letters R, G, L, where we can get the word regular, you can also, or regal, you can also change the two English letters. Isaac Moseson did quite a bit of study about this, and it's where we get the word relegate and religious, or regalia. And as you contemplate the spelling of words, whether it's in English or sometimes even Greek or Latin or other languages, it'll fill in the picture of what this word is really talking about. For example, the word relegate or regal or regal there has to do with not just the fact that it's a leg or a foot, but what does the leg do? It moves about and it transports you. It's something that you do all the time, and so it means, in that case, customs, habits, and traditions is that same word. So there it's expanding. So as you study Hebrew, you're not just looking at the definition of the exact word you're looking at, but this expanded view, this multiplication of, it's almost like a bullseye, right? You've got the center target dot, and then you've got these ripples going out around it. Well, that same picture is how to understand the Hebrew language. There's the central bullseye dot. This is the word, and this is exactly what it means. But then there's these expanding ripples of associative concepts, all of which are part of the word. That in order to really understand the Hebrew, you've got to look at the biggest bullseye target, you might say, away from the bullseye that you can.
That makes sense. You guys probably have covered this, but Hebrew is based on action or verb words. And so that makes perfect sense because we are to be doers of the word, not just listeners, not just a thought concept, but actual doers. And so I think it's a whole different mindset and learning that we do when we read the Hebrew. We look at it, we look at the roots, and we go, how does that have anything to do with another word or concept? But if we can learn to look at what is the action, what is being done, what concept of action is being portrayed, then it helps to start thinking in those ways. So I think that's very good. You're right on.
Could I mention one other way of looking at the word debar?
Sure, go for it. I'm sure there's many.
That's one of your favorite words there. If you break it down into two-letter word groups, the word being spelled dalet, bet, resh, you've got dalet, bet, and then you have the word bet, resh. So part of my study is, of course, to look at the whole word, then break it down into individual letters in the double letter groups. So let me ask you what you might do with this. Dalet, bet means bear, B-E-A-R, as in the animal. And bet, resh means pure and clean. So you could say the word debar is a clean bear. Now, some people have asked me or have talked to me about saying, boy, this paleo is pretty tricky stuff because there's all these different meanings, and how do you know what you're doing? And it gets confusing real fast, and so it gets so disturbing that some people just drop it, and they say, look, whether it's a dirty bear, a clean bear, what does that got to do with the word? I'm done with it. Or you could say the word bar. Some people say that means son, like in Bar Jonah, right? That's somebody's name. That means the son of Jonah. So in the dictionary, especially Ernest Klein's etymological dictionary, you'll see that the word bet resh has a number of different meanings, including a field which has been threshed, and so it's cleared. It's kind of like, it also means exterior, not interior. So how do you take all those meanings of the word bet resh, but if you look at dalet bet, not only does it mean bear, it means a whisper or to speak softly. And then you might picture a bear moving softly, but a bear is a massive hulk, but its action is to walk softly, like a whisper. And then that brings to mind, since we're talking about the fact that it means a word, that Elijah saw he was hiding out in the cave, running from Jezebel, and he was standing there, and he saw this earthquake and the windstorm and the fire, but it was in the whisper, the still small voice of Yahuwah, that the Debar came to him. So the fact that we can relate the concepts of Debar being this pure, clean whisper, not just a clean bear or a bear who's outside, it brings these other images that you can then, in your imagination of meditating or contemplating the words, fill in to get these other pictures, which is your own individual subjective study. You can share what you come up with with somebody else, but that's where the benefit is saying, look, this isn't just stuff to learn and memorize and hear what you or me or anybody else says, but the individual people, whoever's choosing to study these words, can put these things together and see for themselves.
Well, that's part of what makes it exciting is the Ruach HaKodesh, His Spirit, His breath, His life that is within you. He will take it and reveal it to you and relate it to where you are with Him. He knows your heart. He knows your insights. He can use that, and I think it's scary maybe for a lot of people that aren't used to working and operating in that and saying, I don't need to put Elohim in a box. He's much greater than that, and I want to see Him expand these things to me. So I just encourage people to, build a relationship with Him, listen to Him, learn to hear His Debar, His word, His life-giving frequencies and energy to your heart that He speaks, and not be afraid of that. I mean, if you're not breaking one of His commandments, I don't think you're going to hear Him wrong.
Eric brought up the word bear in relation to Debar, and you can find it Strong's number 1677, which a lot of people right now have access to. It's a lot easier to just find the Strong's number, but don't stop there. Like Eric said, there's the Red Book, which is the Klein's Etymological Dictionary, which we referenced on this show before, and but nonetheless, if you can simply look up Strong's, you can find it on the internet. It is 1677. It's Dalet Bet, and you get that word Dob with a vowel point here. And I just want to give some information on that word and where it's found in the scriptures and how it's applicable there. Well, it's a masculine noun. It refers to a bear, obviously, but it refers both to female and male bears. And you can find this word used in 1 Samuel 17:34, 2 Kings 2:24, Proverbs 17:12. Now, a female in this context is especially dangerous in regards to her cubs. A female is known as one that will protect her cubs and can become extremely dangerous. Now, you can find the expression of that in 2 Samuel chapter 17, verse 8, as well as Hosea 13:8. Now, it was also compared, this word, Dalet Bet, was compared to the lion in savagery, which is found in Amos chapter 5, verse 19. But I wanted to make mention that in the Messianic reign, the bear and the cow will live together in peace, and that is found in Isaiah chapter 11, verse 7. But in conclusion, what I wanted to say between what both of you had made mention to regarding Ahava and the word Debar, and the fact that I believe that in this hour, Yahuwah is restoring the line of communication between His people, which is what Yahushua came to do. He said that you having eyes to see and ears to hear, while the word faith cometh by hearing, hearing by the Debar, or by the frequency, or by the life of the word of Yahuwah. And we know that Yahushua is the word made flesh. So He came as a transponder, one to communicate or to bring order into the womb of chaos, or to bring order, which is what Debar ultimately means. And so we know that He came to bring order to the house. And if you ask me, which I'm going to tell you anyways, is that we in this hour need to be focused on receiving the word of Yahuwah so that it can give us life within, so that it can inspire us. We know that the word, like the fish or the tail, is supposed to quicken. It's supposed to stir up. And we know the word is alive and active and quickens. And so if the word is moving in us, it should not be something that is stagnant. The word is not supposed to be stagnant. It's supposed to be moving and thriving, and it's supposed to inspire. Back in Genesis, when Yahuwah breathed into Adam, it says that he breathed in the breath of life, the neshama hai, the breath, like Nitsa mentioned, and it caused him to be. Well, back there, when it says breathed in the breath of life, it means the inspiring force, the breath of inspiration. And it means that Yahuwah expired. He expired into Adam, and Adam inspired. There's that reciprocity. Adam was the recipient, and he received the word of Yahuwah, or the pattern, or the DNA, the seed of Yahuwah, so that he can now produce after that kind. And so I think that Yahuwah is looking for a people who will become still, and who will sit before him and pay attention to that still small voice, and learn of him, and learn his ways, and learn to hear and to communicate with him in that frame of love. Amen. Eric, you were going to say something?
The idea that there's this word could be taken as rather a nebulous thing, meaning, well, it's just this big cosmic word. But if you look in John 1:1, it says, in the beginning was the Word was with Elohim, the Word was Elohim, all things were made through this Word, this particular Word became flesh and dwelt among us. It seems to me that this Word is actually, in its essence, the Aleph Tav. And this brings another concept into the discussion, but you said this Word is definable, is definite, it's not just this vague thing, and to study the Hebrew language is to study Aleph Tav rightly ordered, rightly fit, which is actually, in my understanding, the Hebrew alphabet. So to study the letters by which all the words are composed of, and especially to look at them in their natural, organic sequence, you might say, which is the progression of the letters Aleph and Bet, Gimel and Dalet and so forth, that is this pure, clean word, which you might say just sits there almost silent as a whisper. There's the alphabet right in front of you. But what does it mean? And the power of what this word is really saying is like the potential of this fierce she-bear for fury protecting its own. And the Aleph, I picture the Aleph Tav like that, where this Aleph Tav is this most fiercest, powerful,
ferocious,
guarding its own essence.
For sure.
But yet, which is like the cub that it protects, but yet it presents itself as silent, but it's also softly moving. It just keeps moving. It just keeps being.
Again, this word forbear is extremely interesting. That word dab, which is what we said the word forbear is, dalet bet. But did you know that the word dalet bet is the word dabab? And I know this is where you're going to go with this, so let me just give you some support here. It's a primitive root. It's the word for dab, which is bear, and it's where we get that word dalet bet for dabar. Listen to this, guys. It's from Strong's number 1680, and it means to move slowly, that is to glide. But this word forbear, but dabab, also means cause to speak, to cause to speak. But this is interesting. Listen. It's a verb. It means to move slowly or to glide over. It is used in late Hebrew to mean to flow slowly or to drop, like that which the Yara comes, your doctrine fall or drop as the rain. It says in the Old Testament it is suggested of something that causes one to speak. And in the discourse of the Shulamite and her beloved, this word, dab, bear, identifies the way wine would gently or slowly move over the taster's lips and teeth. You can find that in Songs of Solomon, chapter 7, verse 9. So go ahead, Eric.
Well, that's great that you would bring that word in, because one of the things that in studying the structure, the engineering of how a word works, if you take a two-letter word and you duplicate the second letter and make it also the third, that's where you get from dalet bet, you get dalet bet bet. It doesn't really change the verb or the word, but it gives you other insights into it, which you just did, what you just provided us. So as you're thinking of the word bear, it's not just, okay, there's that animal, but now you're getting into characteristics of the bear, which is all part of it as you're studying the word, kind of like what I was mentioning before about the bullseye and the ripples around the target zone, concentric circles around the center, where if you look at the attributes of the bear, and then the spelling of the word in these other ways, you will realize that this is what this Hebrew word is talking about. The fact that we use the word in speech and call it bear is only part of the story. Mm-hmm. And being that the bar of Yahweh is the Aleph Tav, now you can, because you have that information, you might say it's esoteric information. In other words, the one untranslated word, which is less than a whisper, is Aleph Tav. It's the fourth word of Genesis 1:1. Bereshit bara Elohim et. That's Aleph Tav, Hashemayim ve'et ha'aretz. In the beginning created Elohim, or God created, as it's in English, Aleph Tav the heavens and Aleph Tav the earth. So, being that we know that this Aleph Tav is the first and last letters, suggesting the whole alphabet in between, which is the word, then you might say, as one comprehends the fullness of the meaning of the Aleph Tav, in a sense that is the word of Elohim coming to you and speaking.
It's like the flow, like we mentioned earlier. The pipe, we're like the pipe, and his word flows through us, and we need to remove any congestion in us so that that word can flow freely in love. That's awesome. I'm super excited. We're running out of time now. I think we brought some purpose to, or put some legs on the word debar as well as the word ahava. Nitza, thank you for joining us. I know we didn't have enough time to review everything that Yahuwah is sharing with you, but hopefully we can do that at a later time. If there's anything you want to interject before we go.
Thank you for being here. Anytime you start talking about debar and you have a zeal for his revelation and his word, you don't ever have enough time.
Never. We could just go on and on. Now, Nitza, I know that you also teach on the preparation series for the bride, and you have some discourses of linen and the shemen oil, which is, I just love when you talk about the frequencies of the linen and the shemen. And can you give us a source to contact you or to access your information?
Well, actually, we have several. One is to go to remnantremedy.net, and then we have a blog at livingstones.tabernacle.org, and then for radio archives is remnantremedy.net/radio. We're also on Hebrew Nation Radio and Messianic Lamb Radio. And don't miss our newsletter. Sign up for our newsletter from our main website, remnantremedy.net, because we do promos and articles and sales through there for the essential oils and the linens, etc. Thank you so much.
Awesome stuff. Thank you for being with us. Eric, again, it was an awesome show. I wish we had more time to go over all that he is showing us about this, but we will continue in our next show. And for you, the listener, if you have any questions, you can contact either Eric Bissell at...
My email is paleosefer, that's PALEOSFR, as in Samik Pei Resh, at gmail.com. Jessica, I think you should tell the listeners that you, as of soon, are going to have all these that are live on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock are going to be archived where they can access them for hearing previous shows, right?
Right, absolutely. We're actually working on the website now, trying to get the podcasts up. They're available. I just haven't had time to actually put them up, but we are working on that this week. So for those of you who want to access the pre-recorded series, you can soon at Kala Ministries.org, which, by the way, Nitza's son, Zach, is the one that actually set that website up for me. And Nitza, what is Zach's ministry's name, and how can they contact Zach?
iPlex.com. Or iPlex.org. IPLEX.org, I believe.
Right. He did a great job, by the way. So, again, we just want to thank you for sojourning with us. So we say unto you, Zakar, remember the words of Yahushua. And he said unto them, take nothing for your journey, neither staves nor scrip, neither bread nor money, because Yahuwah Elohim Amchom.
Yivarechecha Yahuwah.
Shalom.
God.
Do not touch that dial. Do not click off that page. We are Lamb Radio.
In you, O Yahweh, have I taken refuge. Let me never be ashamed. Deliver me in your righteousness. Incline your ears unto me. Deliver me speedily. Be you to me a rock of refuge, even a fortress of defense, to save me. For you are my rock and my fortress. Therefore, for your name's sake, lead me and guide me. Bring me forth out of the net that they have hidden for me. For you are my stronghold. Into your hand I commit my spirit. You have redeemed me, O Yahweh, you El of truth. I hate them that regard lying vanities, but I trust in Yahweh. I will be glad and rejoice in your loving kindness, for you have seen my affliction. You have taken cognizance of the troubles of my soul, and you have not given me over into the hand of the enemy. You have set my feet in a broad place. Be gracious unto me, O Yahweh, for I am in distress. My eye waste away with vexation, yes, my soul and my body. For my life is spent in sorrow, and my years in sighing. My strength fails because of my iniquity, and my bones are wasted away. Because of all my adversaries, I am become a reproach. Yes, unto my neighbors exceedingly, and a dread to my acquaintance. They that see me without flee from me. I am forgotten as a dead man out of mind. I am like a useless vessel, for I have heard the whispering of many, terror on every side while they took counsel together against me. They devised to take away my life. But as for me, I have trusted in you, O Yahweh. I have said, you are my Elohim. My times are in your hand. Deliver me from the hand of my enemies, and from them that persecute me. Make your face to shine upon your servant. Save me in your loving kindness. O Yahweh, let me not be ashamed, for I have called upon you. Let the wicked be ashamed. Let them be put to silence in Sheol. Let the lying lips be dumb, which speak arrogantly against the righteous with pride and contempt. Oh, how abundant is your goodness, which you have laid up for them that fear you, which you have wrought for them that take their refuge in you. In the sight of the sons of men, you hide them in the covert of your presence from the plotting of man. You conceal them in a pavilion from the strife of tongues. Blessed be Yahweh, for he has shown me his wondrous loving kindness in an entrenched city. As for me, I said in my haste, I am cut off from before your eyes. Nevertheless, you heard the voice of my supplications when I cried unto you. O love Yahweh, all you his righteous ones, for Yahweh guards trustworthy ones, and exceedingly repays the doer of pride. Be strong, and let your heart take courage, all you that wait for Yahweh.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.